with two other members from Ríðar of Wyrd. Tonight we are going to go over our third video for the Havamal from a great book called The Study Havamal from the Huginn and Muninn Publishing Company. And from our second book,
it's the Chris Holmes version of the Havamal. It's just his translation, translated in 2009. It's a little more recent.
This is, introduce yourself.
Oh, I'm sorry. Nelson Young, Elder or Vice President of the Ríðar of Wyrd.
I am Hank Stratton. I am Master of Coin for Ríðar of Wyrd.
And yeah, let's do this thing. Okay. So you want to kick it off?
Sure. Okay. So if you've been paying attention, so the first two stanzas were in reference to guests coming in and how to be wary and how to present yourself as a guest to the host door properly. The third stanza is in no less different, and it's kind of on that same line of thinking. So this translation here is: the fire is needful for those who arrive with cold knees. Food and clothing is needful to men who have fared over the fells.
Okay. Bray's translation is: he hath need of fire, who now is come, numbed with cold to the knees. Food and clothing the wanderer craves, who has fared o'er the roomy fell. I really hate saying it. But next.
So that leaves me with Thor or Bellows.
Whichever one you want.
I will take Bellows. Fire. He needs who, with frozen knees, has come from the cold without. Food and clothes must the fair have. The man of the mountain comes.
Okay. And Thorpe is: fire is needful to him who is come in, and whose knees are frozen, food and rampant. Raiment. Right, raiment. A man requires who o'er the fell has traveled. So it's they're pretty coherent with all of it.
I agree.
Yeah, it's okay. You've got somebody that came to your house. They're cold. They're freezing. They're. I mean, if somebody comes to your house and they're wet, they're soaked to the bone, and it's cold outside.
Right.
You're gonna try and get them warm, one way or another.
Absolutely.
Or they're gonna die.
Absolutely.
Right.
In fact, a good reference point with this, for those of you who are Vikings, the TV show fans, in the first season, when they go to meet Jarl Borg for the first time, and they're soaking wet and outside, and they have their hands over the fire, and that's all they're given, is this tiny little bit of fire, and Jarl Borg flips out and yells at his men, "Why didn't you offer them dry clothes? Why didn't you bring them in closer to the fire? Why didn't you offer them food and drink?" Which is quite literally what Auden is saying here.
Right. Yeah, I think they took that scene straight out of the freaking Havamal now that you mention it.
Absolutely.
Okay.
When you have someone that comes over, they're treated, I won't say like family, but basic comforts. Okay, you come over, you're wet. I have spare clothes. They may not necessarily fit, but they will let your clothes dry, right, while you have warmth, comfort, food,
right,
and drink. Someone had posted on Facebook what to expect when you come to my house. The coffee is easily made.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know about the bourbon, but the beer is good too. There's always something when you come over.
Right.
This is telling you how to be a host.
Yes.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, it's courtesy. It's
as it was explained to me back before the world had gotten warmer. Okay, the ancient times when people had gone out, there was a code of conduct.
Yeah.
That you come across a house because if you did not get shelter during that night, you could freeze to death.
Right.
There was a courtesy unwritten between the fair and the homeowner.
Right. Yep. Absolutely.
Courtesy was given both ways.
Absolutely.
So, and that's 180% correct. I mean, that's just the way it was.
Yep.
And we still try and do that today. We even gave the in our previous videos, we talked about breaking down out in the middle of nowhere.
Right.
Or
Right.
a friend coming over or something like that. And this goes into something that heathens tend to follow. And it goes directly into something that's more of a newer piece of heathenry that people tend to follow anymore, which is the 9 Noble Virtues, about
Sure.
hospitality.
Mm-hmm.
Anywhere throughout the 9 Noble Virtues, or throughout the Havamal, you're going to run
Right.
into hospitality. Not only how to act as the guest,
Right.
but how to act as
Host.
the host. Yeah.
Absolutely. But another good point is if you reference back to the first stanza, where it says that you should be wary when you come open the door. Look for those who would not be kind hosts. And there, I hate to do this, but I'm a big movie fan. And so if you watch Conan the Barbarian,
Yes.
when he goes after being shackled and he breaks his chains and is freed, the first house he comes across is a witch. And of course, we all know how that went. So it wasn't, he thought he was only coming for food and fire, but, it's one of those things where, you have to look at not only being a good guest and the host being good, but you have to make sure that it's, that you both are coinciding with each other's intentions, that the intentions are met with the same equal level.
Right.
Yeah.
Which has also brought us back to the other ones.
So is there a time where this is not
Oh yeah.
accepted?
Okay.
Or not a practice? In other words, oh dude, you ain't working for me, and I think I'll just go ahead and, or I'm the host and it's like, there's something wrong with you.
Or should I shut the door?
Right.
Oh.
Okay.
Alright.
So that's probably going to be addressed further into this, but there is yes, there's a time of the year where hospitality is not given, received, expected, or returned.
Sure.
And that's during
The Mother's Night.
Mother's Night.
Yep.
The beginning of Odin's Run.
Right. Right.
The Wild Hunt. And that historically is when you shut the doors, you barred the house, because you didn't know who was out there, what was going on, and whether that was Odin and his host out hunting down and doing what they were supposed to be doing, or it could be a geist, it could be the Land of Lights, it could be anything else left at your door also.
It could have been many things.
One of the ways to get rid of a spirit that was left on your step during that night would be to brew beer in eggshells and a few other different things, and then feed it to that spirit, and it would take that into itself, and it would go on its way. It was an offering that you had to create. Uh-oh, he's thinking.
Prosperity and the bitterness.
Yeah.
So, like some legends, you left a bowl of water
Yeah.
for someone to, whatever entity, whatever idea,
Sure.
to wash themselves, and they're on their merry.
Wait.
Well, I didn't think I had to finish it. Because we know it's going to be merry. Wait, we left them on their merry,
Stopping and skipping.
I got you.
Then the prelude's back. Okay, anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But
No, I definitely agree with you.
back to the original thing, yeah, if someone comes over to the house and I know them, or if they're stranded and they're like, okay, hey, the tow truck's not going to be here for 3 hours, if it's somebody you know, be like, yeah, here's a giant blanket, sit next to the heater, whatever you need to do, we'll throw your clothes in the dryer. I mean, that happens a lot of times when you go to your friend's house if you're soaked. That used to be a thing, at least when I was a kid.
Well, yeah, and when you were walking.
Yeah, when you walked in the rain to a friend's house and you ended up soaked. Not only that, they just didn't want your soggy stuff all over their house.
Right. And let's be honest, I mean, even our ancestors covered wagons weren't covered.
Right.
Not really.
Yeah.
You know.
It looks like we have another question coming through.
I love these channeled questions. Coming from the Great Bill. Anyway, hey, come back here.
Only physical needs. No, these were okay. Are these only physical needs? No, actually, that's part of the thing. Is when you give somebody warmth and comfort when they come out of the cold or anything else, that's not just a physical need.
No.
It may be something physical you can do, but it actually helps and benefits their well-being on many levels because you're giving them comfort. You're giving them a safe place to be, a safe place to go. If they're stuck out in a storm and they think they're going to die, and all of a sudden you open up your home and you say, here, sit next to my fire, sit in something warm, we'll take care of you. They go from being afraid to being happy to be alive, if nothing else. And they're happy at what you did, and they may remember that later and then pass that on to someone else.
Right.
Comfort can also be counseling.
Yes. Absolutely.
They have an issue that yeah, I'm here, what the hell am I gonna do? And then my dog ran off with my cat because
Maybe the cat identified it as a dog.
could be, you know. But that's the thing that you would work with. Now you could call it counseling. You could call it addressing an intellectual level, a spiritual level.
Sure.
You're not.
Sure.
How do I put this? You're not going out of the way and giving advice where it's not needed. Okay, you're here. Here's my 2 cents. You can take it or leave it.
Right. I mean, many times we're offered advice, and it's usually the advice we already know that we end up taking. But we have to hear it from someone else. Sometimes that's what it takes. You have to hear it from someone outside of yourself. And let's not also forget that a common thing in most pagan homes is that they will have an altar of some sort. And so if you come visiting and you feel the need to approach that altar, that's usually not a problem either.
So we have another question: is are there limits to this? Well, yes. If you're a host or a guest, if you're a host to somebody that's coming in and you don't know them, you don't always want them wandering around in your house. You may give them a safe area to go to.
Yeah, sure.
You may limit them, and they have to respect the limits you impose upon them. On the other hand, if you're the host and you break those limits, you expect not to be welcome anymore.
Well,
you're accountable for your actions.
Absolutely.
Either side.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. But the other thing is too, you should never injure yourself to help them either. You know, you should never give them your last cup of soup if you have not eaten. You know, you shouldn't give them the $20 that you need to go to work next week. You shouldn't offer that if you're not willing to sacrifice it. So there also is, just as you said, you know, you have to be responsible for your actions either way. Right. As a host, you have to be respectful and understand what your needs are, as well as theirs.
Right, but that's not 100% true. There were times when people would actually literally say, okay, this is all I have. This is my only loaf of bread, but you are in need, and I will share that last piece of bread with you.
That's the thing.
Sharing it with them.
Sharing it,
correct. Not giving
all of it.
Right.
Correct. So there's another question. What benefit? So it's kind of a mutual thing.
Right.
So not only are you showing that, well, that's kind of difficult to you.
The reason why is for the common good. It's you're helping someone else along the way, whether it's ancient times or modern day. A car stalled and she, the driver, is the only one there. I've gotten out and pushed the car out of the way, at least off the road, or an elderly couple. Off the road, now it's safe enough for them to not hinder traffic and they are able to call a tow truck or rescue or
Continue.
and the benefit, people know you for who you are,
Right.
what you do.
Sure.
So in modern society, that's perfect. Okay, so that just reminded me of something completely random, and it fits really well. So I've got a Jeep, right? A big Wrangler. Okay, so my wife drives it daily back and forth to work because she's tall enough to fit into it comfortably. Say what
Okay,
you will, it's
moving.
lifted and she's tall, so it works. So one of the things is it drove her crazy at the beginning because there's this thing called a Jeep wave, and everyone who owns another Wrangler waves at each other. She's like, "Why? Is that like a thing?" And I was like, "Yeah, it's a thing." She goes, "Well, why?" I was like, "Well, you don't know if that other Jeep is the one that's going to pull you out of the hole you were stupid enough to go in the first place."
You
So
ever
this
notice that? You ever
fits
notice
along
that with the
same thing.
motorcycles?
Same thing.
Nobody does that with the HHRs anymore. Oh, anyway,
Right.
moving right along.
But they still.
So nobody cares if you drive run-of-the-mill car either. It's a four-door compact. No one gives a fuck.
Oh.
We are
They
that
usually have
sensitive,
AAA.
right?
No.
I'm just saying.
Okay. So anyway, so it's a courtesy thing. Courtesy
And
doesn't
the
cost.
meat hasn't flowed yet.
Right.
Okay.
That's correct.
No, but it's definitely one of those things that I think gets lost on today's society is how to apply these things to today. How is it relevant today? And we find a lot of people who look to the old ways ask themselves these questions. How do I bring something that's old into what is now?
Who
relevant?
says it's old?
And people do it every day.
And it's not
Absolutely.
old.
Right.
It's been happening all the time.
Sure.
People have gotten, I don't want to say afraid,
Sure.
overly cautious. There are those who do not follow the laws of courtesy. Okay, I
Absolutely.
stop and I give you a ride, and oh, by the way, I want your wallet and your car keys and and your first whatever. Okay.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. So there is always that, do I allow this to happen? To be honest, one of the things that I had done, I live in Yelm, as you know, and I'm driving home and I'm crossing the bridge, and as I'm going across, there's a guy there who probably needs a ride out of the rain, but he had a dog with him, and I can't let the dog in my car because I got a bunch of shit in my back seat that's could hurt the dog. Should I be in an accident, or should I have to turn really quickly or something? So it's not that I didn't want to help the guy, it's I was unable to due to what was already in my car.
Okay. Okay. So anyways, sorry, we had a squirrel from the background come forward for a moment.
Oh, it's shiny.
So, do you guys have anything else you'd like to add to this?
I think we're good.
I think we,
Oh. So here's another question. Which gods did this? So, who practiced? Well, Auden did. He tested everybody on it
Sure.
over and over and over.
Right.
He would show up in villages in disguise and go, "Hey, let me see if this guy will actually treat me right or not." In
Right.
fact, there's an old story about two brothers who Auden and his wife Frigg lived across from, and they observed them. They came back. And they tested them both. Well, Auden liked the older one, and Frigg liked the younger one.
Sure.
So they both kind of took them on their knee for a little bit. Well, when they got back, they sent them back across the water, and the older brother got out of the boat and then pushed his younger brother back into the water and let him flow away. He said, "Oh, hey, younger brother died."
Right.
Right. So he took up the kingship when his father died. Well, the younger brother lived, came back, pretended to be a servant,
Sure.
Long story short, Auden showed up one day to test the hospitality of the king, who he was like, yeah, I liked this kid when he was a kid.
Sure.
He failed miserably because, well, Frigg, you know, she did a couple things on the side that,
Sure.
yeah,
She does.
yeah, as she does. I'm not going to spoil the story for everybody.
Right.
Right. But basically, he tripped, fell down on his sword. The other brother came forward and was the one who was actually hospitable and said, by the way, I'm the younger brother, and became king. And was successful. So.
Right. I mean, one of the other stories, too, is the one where Thor and Loki go adventuring and they stop at the little farmhouse. And Thor, of course, has these two magical goats.
Yeah.
In which then he cuts one of the goat's throat as a sacrifice. They cook the goat, and he says, no, you can all partake and eat the goat, but don't break its bones. Because the next day, when I revive the goat, it's going to have problems. Well, Loki had whispered into the little boy's ear as to, well, why don't you just smash like one of the little bones, you know? It's a small bone. It's not really all that important, you know? It's just a little foot bone. It'll be okay, and then you can suck the marrow out, and it'll be nice.
Because
it'll
Thor
be fine.
keeps it to himself.
Right, because Thor keeps it to himself, and that's why he won't let anybody have any. Thor's greedy. So, the boy does what Loki had asked him to do and breaks it open and, you know, doesn't think too much of it. You know, he eats it, he goes to sleep the next morning. Next morning, Thor gathers the bones, puts them in a pile, puts the goat skin over it, and revives the goat, and it limps. Well, Thor at this time is in such a fury that he's about to smash heads, as is usually his first impulse.
Right.
So, so Loki says, well, no. Well, let's take the small children as our servants.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, you know, Thor then agrees. And what a nice life that you can provide for these kids. And, you know, he talks to the parents and is able to use his silver tongue to then make the parents feel better about letting both their children go back with Thor.
Mm-hmm.
So it's also one of those things of, oh, look, you know, you're a host. I'm a guest. I'm providing food because I'm not going to sit at your door empty-handed. And then you go ahead and you kind of mess up the deal by doing what I asked you not to,
Right.
even as the host. So, yeah, definitely.
It goes both ways. Okay, we could go on these stories forever and ever.
Loki needs to get smacked from time to time. Anyway,
He does.
Okay. So, unless we have anything else, I think we pretty much covered almost everything and then some with this one.
I think so.
So, for time limit reasons, and so everyone doesn't get bored watching us,
Right.
We'll say thank you for watching, and we'll do the corny YouTube thing. Like, subscribe, and click the little bell thingy so you get new notifications and all that stuff. And
Right.
Check out our webpage. We actually have like the fancy sign up now, so you can actually see all the information here. We'll also put links below, but make sure we're going to look and see what you wrote below. We'll answer whatever questions or comments you have, and let us know how we can help.
Right. Even if we don't like your comment, as long as it's respectful, we'll leave it.
Thank you.
Stay heathen.